Hi there, I'm Andy Neal and this is a motion time saver tutorial. This time I'm going to be making a rotating Earth using only 2D images. Just keep in mind though that this will hopefully look 3D when we're finished. It's ultimately not. Let's start with a 720p project. The first thing I need are stars. Now I pre-built these by using a particle emitter and then exporting it as a TIFF. For a more in-depth explanation of how to do that, check out my Star Wars crawl tutorial. The crux of this project are some satellite photos that I Googled and I pulled from the NASA archives. Now, you can find your own photos if you want, but I've included a link below with the elements that I'm using here to make things easier. One note on the photos. Each one we'll be using, and there's 3 of them, are exactly the same size. And more than that, they are exactly twice as long as they are high. This is an important distinction in case you want your Earth to loop. Okay, create a group and label it Earth and Clouds, and then drag the Earth photo into it. Select it and duplicate it by hitting Command D on your keyboard. In order for me to make it so the Earth rotates completely around, I need 2 maps to begin with. Select the Earth and Clouds group, go to the Properties tab, and scale it down so that we have some room to work. Then select the copy we made and drag the X position until it's beside the original. Now scale the group back up and move it over so that we can see the gap more clearly. Go back to the Earth photo duplicate and move its X position until there's very little gap between the 2. To make minute changes, you can hold down the Option key while you click and drag in the X position box. Or else you can nudge the position by holding down the Command key and using your left or right arrows. This is ideal for this kind of thing where you want the edges to line up but not overlap. There. Okay, scale the group down to about 75% and return its X and Y position to 0. Now we have to do this with our cloud photo as well. Drag the cloud photo into the group and make sure that it's above the Earth layers. Duplicate the cloud layer. Now, instead of manually lining it up again, since the cloud and the Earth layers are the exact same size and are at the same position, I can just copy the X position of the duplicate Earth layer and apply it to the duplicate cloud layer. To do that, just select the duplicate Earth photo and in the Properties tab, click and drag the X position parameter and drop it on top of the duplicate cloud layer. There. Now the cloud photos are lined up just as the Earth photos are. Now eventually we're going to be applying some behaviors and some filters to these photos. And so to do that so that they're affected as one, we want to group them. Select both Earth photos, right click, and choose Group from the menu. Title this group Earth. Do the same with the Clouds layer and label this group Clouds. Now, when we move and we distort these layers, they'll behave as if they're a single layer. Turn off the clouds for a moment. Let's make this Earth round. Select the main Earth and Clouds group and change it into a 3D layer by clicking this icon over here in the Layers pane. This is actually a simple but very important step. Your Earth rotation will not work correctly unless the layers are inside a 3D group. Go to Filters, Distort, Sphere. In the Filters tab, adjust the radius until it looks properly round. Okay, there's still something flat about this picture though. Select the Earth group and go to Filters, Style, Indent. Well, that's a bit much, but let's see if we can't tone it down a bit. Go to the Filters tab and take the depth down to about 6. Then change the light rotation to 0. Drop the highlight brightness down to 4 and bring the softness and overall brightness down as well. Then bring the highlight sharpness up to about 50 and the ambient light up to about 0.7. There. See, now the mountains look like they have a little bit of height to them. Okay. Now let's get the Earth moving. Select the Earth group and go to the Properties tab. Click and drag in the X position to see the Earth rotating. This is the part that wouldn't work if the 3D hadn't been turned on for the main group. It doesn't have to be on for the Earth group, but it does here if you want it to be able to rotate the planet. Turn it back to 2D to see what happens. Notice that the Earth is just moving in space now and is not turning. Making this group 3D fixes that. Now, we could just keyframe the Earth's X position to rotate it, but it's much easier to use a behavior. Right-click the X position and choose Ramp from the menu. Go to the end of your sequence and adjust the end value until you've completed one rotation. You can either eyeball it or you can use guides to get it exact. Just make sure that the end frame is just a little bit less than one complete rotation so that when the playhead loops, it looks continuous. Alright, let's see. That looks pretty good to me. The only thing is that it's spinning way too fast. Now there's two things you can do about that. Either I can lengthen the project so that one rotation takes much longer, or I can slow down the ramp behavior and only show a portion of the rotation. Since there's some more tricks I want to show you, I'm going to do that. So let's lower the end value on the ramp to about 110. Also, if you don't like the starting point for the place on Earth, all you have to do is go into the Properties tab of the Earth group and adjust the X position. Since we used a behavior instead of keyframes, it doesn't mess anything up with the speed of the rotation. Now, let's turn the clouds back on. We should add some movement to them as well. One of the reasons I wanted the clouds in a separate group from the Earth was so that I could rotate the clouds at a different speed. See, clouds move. They don't just hang around over the same piece of land. First though, I can't even see the land right now. We need to create some transparency here. For that, I'm going to use the Primat keyer. With the cloud layer selected, go to Filters, Keying, Primat RT. Well, that seemed to have done it. Primat makes a guess as to what color it thinks that you want to be transparent. It's not always right, but it guesses pretty good most times. Let's clean it up a bit though. Select the Filters tab and turn the noise removal all the way down to bring back some of the definition of the clouds. Also, turn the spill suppression down as far as you can. And now raise the matte density to about 0.62. That gives a bit of a layered look to the clouds. Also, there seems to be quite a bit of cloud cover. That's a little much for my taste. Go into the Properties tab and scrub in the X position to find a little bit lighter of an area. Now, try scaling it up. Good. See, because of the sphere filter, I can scale up the cloud layer and the portions of the frame along the top and the bottom edges just go away. Essentially, they're being masked out by the filter that's on the Master Earth and Clouds group. Now, I like the way this looks, but I'm going to add one more detail. In the Properties tab, turn on the drop shadow. Drop the opacity down to about 50, increase the distance to maybe 10 or 11, and crank the blur up to 17. So now that really gives the clouds some separation. Go to the X position and again right-click and select Ramp. Change the end value so that it's slightly more than the 110 that we used for the Earth ramp. I went with 150. I want it to be subtle. Okay, now we're getting there. But the edge of the Earth looks a bit sharp. Let's soften it up a bit. Select the Earth and Clouds group, and then go up to the Shape tool and select the circle shape. Hold down the Option and Shift keys, and then drag from the center of the Earth. Holding Option and Shift will constrain the shape to a perfect circle that draws from the center out. Try to make it the same size as the Earth. Then adjust it so that it's centered and covers the Earth completely. Select the Earth and Clouds group again and hit Command-Shift-M to set an image mask. Now normally you can't mask 3D layers in motion, but the image mask is an exception to that rule. In the Mask tab, drag the circle you just made into the source well of the image mask. This will turn off the circle layer, but its properties are used to determine the mask. So, if we select the circle, and in the Shape tab, adjust the feathering, you'll see that the mask updates and reflects our changes. Now we don't need to mask it that much, so take it back to 0, and then slowly inch back until we have a nice subtle edge on the Earth. Now I want to give it a bit of a halo, kind of like a rim light. To do that, create a new group and place it below the Earth and Clouds group and call it Rim Light. Select the circle that we just made and duplicate it with Command D. Then drag it into the Rim group. Turn it on. Adjust the feathering until we have a nice little glow behind the Earth. Maybe adjust the color and give it just a hint of a yellow. Yeah, that looks good. Now, let's add a light. Go to Object, New Light, or if you have the icon on your toolbar, just click it. Move it over to the upper left of the Earth, and then pull it away a bit in the Z position. Use the Transform 3D tool and drag the blue arrow, or else adjust the Z position in the Properties tab. In the Lights tab, change the light type to Spot and adjust the cone angle and the soft edge and the intensity until you have a nice dark patch. This really helps to sell the roundness. Also, because the light affects all the objects in the scene, the rim light that we had that kind of was glowing all the way around the Earth is now only glowing on the side that the light is showing on. This looks really great. There's just one more really cool thing we can do to put this over the top. When the Earth rotates, half the Earth is in daylight and the other half is in darkness. Well, there's enough lights on in the big cities of the world to be seen from space. I found a great photo that's the same size as the Earth and Clouds picture that shows the lights of the world at night. Create a new group inside the Earth and Clouds group. Make sure it's a 2D group. Name it Lights, and then drag the Lights picture into this group. Duplicate it, and like we did with the Clouds picture, drag the exposition property from the duplicate Earth clip onto the duplicate Lights clip. Since the Lights picture is just a black and white photo, we can create transparency in the black portion by just using a blend mode. Go to the Properties tab and change the blend mode to Screen. There. Now we can see the Earth underneath our lights. But we've moved the Earth picture around a bit, so we need to line up the lights with the corresponding land masses. Turn off the Clouds layer for a moment to make this easier. Adjust the exposition of the Lights group until it lines up. Now, right-click the X position and choose Ramp from the menu. Change the end value to the same as the ramp behavior for the Earth group. In case you forgot, it's 110. Great. Now we have another problem though. We can see lights on the daylight part of the Earth, but there are still no lights on the dark half where we really need them. This is because every time you add a group, it's going to inherit the properties of any lights that are in the scene. We actually want the opposite of that. Go to the Properties tab, twirl open the parameter for lighting. In the drop-down for shading, select Off. There. Now we have lights on the dark side of the planet, but we still have lights on the day side too. To get rid of these, we're going to use another mask. Go to the Mask Shape tool and select the Circle Mask. Draw a nice oval about the size of the lit portion of the Earth. Use the rotation and position parameters to line it up so that it matches the oval made by the light. In the Mask tab, select the Invert Mask button and then adjust the feathering to match the shadow line. Perfect. But if you scrub through the timeline, you'll notice that the mask is moving. We need it to stay put. So to do that, make sure that the mask layer is selected and go to the Properties tab and once again right-click the X position parameter and choose Ramp. For the end value, it needs to be exactly opposite of the value of the Earth group. In this case, -110, which is the opposite of 110. There. Now the mask stays put and the lights wink on as the Earth rotates away from the Sun. There you have it, a nice beautiful rotating Earth with tons of detail. I'm Andy Neal and this has been a Motion Time Saver tutorial.